Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the case of Lara Logan? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I'll put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. First, I'll look at the background of Lara Logan, then move to my analysis. Lara Logan was born on March 29, 1971, in Durban, South Africa. She grew up with two siblings in a wealthy family. Her father left her mother when Lara was 8 years old. After the divorce, her mother moved the family into a small apartment and worked as a glass company sales representative. When Lara was in high school and in college, she worked as a swimsuit model. Later, she worked for two different newspapers. She graduated with a degree in commerce in 1992 and then became a senior producer for a news agency in Africa. In 1996, Lara started functioning as a freelance journalist. She obtained assignments with NBC, ABC News, CBS News, Independent Television News in the UK, and CNN. In 2000, she started working as a correspondent for GMTV Breakfast Television in the UK, which is now owned by ITV. In 2002, Lara accepted a permanent position with CBS News. She had a $1 million contract. She often reported from war zones, like in Iraq and in Afghanistan. Her stories were featured on Face the Nation, 60 Minutes 2, and CBS Evening News. Lara was promoted to Chief Foreign Affairs Correspondent in 2006. In February 2011, when Lara was covering unrest in Cairo, Egypt, she was the victim of an assault of a sexual nature perpetrated by a mob of rioters. She sustained both physical and emotional damage from the attack. In 2012, Lara was diagnosed with stage 2 breast cancer. The treatment was successful, but she developed panic attacks. She sought mental health counseling to address the symptoms. In 2013, Lara had a segment featured on 60 Minutes about the 2012 Benghazi, Libya attack, where two U.S. government facilities were targeted by militants. She interviewed a security officer hired by the State Department named Dylan Davies. The report featured several of Dylan's outrageous claims about his heroism during the attack. Lara did not investigate his story very well, or she would have discovered that Dylan had told the FBI that he was not in Benghazi when the militants attacked. The show 60 Minutes issued a retraction for the story, and Lara took a leave of absence. It was a major embarrassment for CBS. In 2015, despite her failure on the Benghazi story, Lara was offered a contract as a part-time correspondent on 60 Minutes. Instead of making over $2.1 million, as she did in 2014, her salary was reduced to $750,000. She performed adequately on several segments of 60 Minutes. However, CBS refused to renew her contract in 2018. Lara took a temporary job with the Sinclair Broadcast Group in 2019 and reported on problems at the border between the United States and Mexico. In 2020, she had a show on Fox News called Lara Logan Has No Agenda. In March 2022, Lara said that she had been dumped by Fox News, but she did not seem too upset by it. She described the decision by the network as a gift from the heavens, saying, quote, "God has intervened in my life in very significant ways to spare me from being tainted," unquote. Now moving to my analysis. Here are my thoughts on a few areas that stood out to me in this case. Item number 1. At one time, Lara Logan was a highly respected journalist and war correspondent. She was described as a hard worker who was incredibly brave. Sometimes she was fearless to the point of being reckless. Her colleagues complained that she took too many risks in war zones. For example, she once ignored a commander's order and walked over to look at an unexploded bomb that was on the ground. During her early career, her colleagues thought that she was hard to read as far as her political beliefs, but over time it became clear that Lara was becoming increasingly conservative. Lara also talked about her religious beliefs and synthesized them into her political ideology. She mentioned a spiritual battle and the end times. Eventually, Lara's work and statements reflected and promoted far-right conspiracy theories. This brings me to item number 2. Here are a few examples of controversial, disturbing, or unusual statements that Lara has made over the years. Lara was dropped by United Talent Agency after comparing Anthony Fauci to a genocidal Nazi physician. In October 2022, Lara was being interviewed for a show on the right-wing television network Newsmax. She talked about a massive conspiracy that was going to bring 100 million illegal immigrants to the United States to dilute the pool of patriots. Lara said, quote, "The open border is Satan's way of taking control of the world through all of these people who are his stooges and his servants," unquote. She went on to say, quote, "You know, the ones who want us eating insects, cockroaches, and that, while they dine on the blood of children," unquote. Newsmax condemned the comments as reprehensible, and they said they had no plans to interview Lara again, probably because of the servants of Satan part. During the 2022 Russian invasion of Ukraine, Lara made a number of unkind statements about Ukrainian President Zelensky, implying that he was involved in satanic practices and calling him a puppet. In March of 2022, Lara claimed that the Rothschild family had paid Charles Darwin to create the theory of evolution. She also said that same family was behind the American Civil War and assassinated Abraham Lincoln and John F. Kennedy. In February 2023, Lara was speaking at a Moms for Liberty meeting in Texas. She said, quote, "If you want to know why it's called social media, I'll tell you why. Because Karl Marx was hired by Henry Rothschild, by the Rothschild family, to develop a system of social control. So when you see social, it is a form of control. That's all it is. Social media is a form of controlling us all," unquote. Lara believes that the American media is trying to silence her because she is uncovering a war against humanity. A reporter writing an article that was later published in The Atlantic asked to interview Lara. She responded, quote, "Unfortunately, I have no doubt this is another hit piece desperately seeking to discredit several decades of award-winning work at 60 Minutes, CBS, ABC, NBC, and beyond, and you are only seeking my voice to add legitimacy to the anonymous cowards you will use to attack me once again," unquote. Item number 3. Lara's career in the mainstream media appears to be over. She has adopted such an extreme position, it's hard to imagine anyone would take a chance on hiring her. The colleagues who once respected her now keep their distance. Some have condemned her, while others don't know what to think. They can't understand how Lara facilitated such a rapid and dramatic fall from grace. Lara has been reduced to speaking at minor events to promote her extreme point of view. For example, she spoke at the Park Cities Republican Women Christmas fundraising lunch in Texas. One member who helped organize the event said, quote, "We had to cut her off because she was going on too long," unquote. Item number 4. What do I think happened in the case of Lara Logan? This is just a theory, my opinion. It sounds like Lara had a number of stressors in her life. It's possible that these stressors conspired to make Lara a conspiracy theorist. When she was young, she saw her mother go from a place of perceived financial and emotional safety to living a modest lifestyle and being alone. This may have eroded Lara's sense of security and stability and fostered a distrust of authority figures. During the early part of her career as a journalist, it appears as though Lara was displeased with the pronounced liberal bias in the mainstream media. Over time, she became increasingly concerned about this. Lara once said, quote, "When I was in that 60 Minutes bubble, I didn't realize how biased we were against anything that came from the right. Of course, if you're left, you're not known as left, you're known as having no political affiliation. If you are conservative, you have to be politically defined and demonized," unquote. As she adopted more conservative attitudes, the left-wing bias of the media may have caused Lara to feel paranoid. For example, in 2007, she said that she always thought there was some type of secret plot to destroy her. Lara is married to a man named Joseph Burkett. Reportedly, he has an interest in conspiracy theories. Maybe Lara selected him for that reason, or maybe she adopted some of his beliefs. Either way, after marrying Joseph, Lara became much more interested in conspiracy theories. After Lara was brutally attacked in Egypt, she may have blamed liberal politicians, who she believed were indirectly responsible. Just over a year later, she had cancer. This was undoubtedly a frightening experience, one that again could erode a sense of security and stability. When Lara did an awful job with the Benghazi report for 60 Minutes, she felt as though the media had turned on her, like they were attacking her because she was conservative, as opposed to attacking her because she made a terrible mistake on the story. Eventually, Lara's beliefs solidified, and she became a full-fledged far-right conspiracy theorist. She has dug in now and will refuse to listen to reason. She maintains absolute certainty that she is right and is on a hero's crusade to battle the forces of evil, which from her perspective includes the mainstream media. Lara believes that the stakes are high. She is fighting for her life. She once said, quote, "All you prayer warriors out there, say some prayers for me, because only God is keeping me alive at this point," unquote. Lara believed that it was her job to expose the media's liberal bias, but she went too far. Instead of just believing that the media promotes left-wing ideology, which is true, she adopted an extensive series of negative beliefs about the left. This led to fear, which pushed her all the way to the far right. It's like she overcompensated. She took one thing that was true and then added a number of false beliefs to it. Her skeptical nature and disagreeableness, which are positive traits for a journalist, are now being used against her because they became too strong, almost like muscles that won't stop growing. They have bound her and made her ineffective. The traits that led her to being respected are now her enemy. They are making her look uninformed, paranoid, and disconnected from reality. Now moving to my final thoughts. There are two lessons that can be learned in this case. Lesson number 1, Lara Logan should stop promoting conspiracy theories. She is now off message and not helping her case. She somehow went from criticizing the mainstream media to involving vaccines, evolving presidential assassins, and cockroach-consuming border demons. If anything, she's making the mainstream media look better by comparison. She needs to take ownership of her extreme beliefs and apologize for her harmful comments. Lesson number 2, Lara Logan has been condemned by some of her former colleagues. Many of her beliefs are harmful, and almost all of them are bizarre, but it's disappointing that those who knew her did not have the insight or the will to explore why Lara became a far-right conspiracy theorist. To say that she had some type of moral failing is a simplistic and unhelpful response. The transformation into a conspiracy theorist happens for a reason. It does not indicate that somebody is good or bad. Rather, it occurs due to a combination of factors that may not be well understood. I find it curious that Lara was on the inside of the mainstream media, a shining star in that community, yet she saw something that frightened her. One could argue that the bias of the media is the seed that grew into a tree of conspiracy theories. Instead of accepting ownership and being honest, the mainstream media continues to promote a political ideology. Ironically, they demonstrate the same low level of insight as Lara Logan. For them to condemn her is the ultimate expression of hypocrisy. Those are my thoughts in the case of Lara Logan. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be informative. Thanks for watching.